Hello, everyone. I hope you're not as tired as me after like 5 day of conference. I've been here since the first day. I had the first workshop also in PostGIS. So can everyone hear me? Okay. I have to speak louder. Okay. It's better. It's better now. Okay. Yeah. So spatial data management in PostGIS, very, very standard stuff. Like we're going to talk about PostGIS. I'm sure everyone has heard of PostGIS. And if you haven't heard it yet, then you're at the wrong conference. Right. First, let's talk about what Postgres is, like before we're talking about the extension. So Postgres is a database that has been in existence for more than 35 years now. It can be used with pretty much any use case there where you have a data and then you can store a data. But since we are at the geospatial conference, so we're going to talk about the geospatial data aspect of it. So yes, so we do have an amazing extension called PostGIS extension, and with that, you can pretty much store any of your geospatial data inside PostGIS, right? You have all the standard functions of manipulating that data as well. You have area, you have intersect, you have whether there's geometries within that geometry. You have st buffer functions to create a buffer around your geometry, and pretty much anything that you want to do. You have multi CRS support. You can even store your data without a CRS projection. So pretty much everything, and it works with a lot of other toolings as well, right? Amazing, isn't it? And that's it for the talk, right? But we are here to learn slightly more about it, right? Just having the extension is helpful, but there's also a lot more in the ecosystem that goes around to working with the data, right? How to move the data in, how to move the data out. And PostGIS just can't exist in silo. I mean, it exists as an extension of Postgres. So you also get all the benefits of the Postgres that exist in this ecosystem, right? Right. So there are a lot of more things that you can do with PostGIS. We just talked about, I mean, and if you I talked about like just standard vector geometry, but that's not what it's limited to. We also can have topology store in it. We also have the Tiger data set available, which is very specific to US, but helpful in cases. There's also raster support. I mean, if any of you have done like rasters in PostGIS, then I'll happy to talk more because I'm still very new to that stuff. But yeah, it does support raster. There is address standardizer. So if any of you have ever worked with geocoding APIs, that will be really helpful to you, right? PG routing. Again, like you have the extension MobilityDB, amazing extension. I did a POC with MobilityDB with an ad tech company, and it was like you have to sell ads on moving taxis throughout the city, and this extension was really useful. So you track all the moving taxis going from one trip to the next, and you also have these metrics like whether they are in the downtown area, whether they are in like the suburban area. So all they had like all different ad prices as the cars were moving in, and they would play those ads when the pricing structure was right. Pretty cool stuff, pretty fun, and mobility was a fun extension to play around with, right? Made stuff a lot more easier than rather than figuring out timestamps and trips and all of that stuff by myself. OGR FDW, right? Another amazing extension. If you have data outside the Postgres, then you can also use it inside the Postgres using the same SQL functions that you have. And there is more. H3PG, another of my favorite extensions, and the first ever FOSS4GE talk that I gave in 2022, where you can represent your spatial data as H3 indexes, and that sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, it takes away your problem from being a spatial problem than to being like a very data problem. Like if you have I mean, it plays to the strengths of Postgres that if you represent your polygon as a bunch of H3 indexes and you have another H3 indexes as points, then you can do a spatial join by figuring out whether that H3 index is also in this table. And that's not a spatial join, that's a Postgres join. And the benefits of doing that, I mean, over the spatial functions, it is much faster because of the BTree index, where Postgres is optimized for speed. Point cloud data. So this was pointed out to me in the conference that you can also store point cloud data in Postgres, right? So next up is moving data in and out. So you can store data in a lot of different ways, but you also have to move data inside Postgres. As I was just having a conversation where a German department have all the data in shape files, and those are like 1,200 shape files. You're not gonna convert each of them into like some random script and then load them into Postgres. You can do that, but you also have these amazing helpful tools, shape to PGSQL, PGSQL to shape. I mean, if you want to go back to the file system data from your 1200 record PostGIS database, then sure, you have 1200 shapefiles. OGR to OGR, already by default installed with GDAL, also can load a bunch of spatial data into uh, Postgres. Raster to PGSQL, personally used to move the rasters inside Postgres and do some analysis. Did this workshop in FOSS4GE Kosovo. Amazing tool. PG topo export and import. Very straightforward. They do topology stuff. OSM to PGSQL, a really widely used library and something that I use in all the FOSS4G conferences for all my sample data sets. OSM, anything, if you're doing anything with OSM and anything with spatial data, anything with PostGIS, then a must have extension, then a must have library in your toolshed. Hot OSM also uses like a slightly different version of OSM to PGSQL to load the OSM data in the hot ecosystem, right? Well, CLI tools are fun. Honestly, I find them quite fun. It's always fun to play around, but we need a way to see the data that's already there in PostGIS. And what better to see it in QGIS as well? I mean, you have a Postgres. It's actually super straightforward. You open QGIS, you have a Postgres operator there on the left side. You make a PostGIS connection, and you have all the spatial data loaded there as separate layers, and then just click the layer, and you have the GIS data all in your QGIS. GeoNode and GeoServer also supports a connection to PostGIS, so your data is loaded. It's ready. It's ready to be served as APIs, right? But we want our own APIs. And how do we get our own APIs from our PostGIS database? Again, bunch of the entire ecosystem comes together. We have PyG API, TipG. If you are building like OGC APIs, I would highly recommend TipG. PostG REST, the workshop that I gave in this FOSS4G conference. If you're building a bunch of REST APIs from your Postgres database, this is a great place to start. GeoDjango. GeoDjango. Everybody like Django, geospatial extension from Django. There was a DG Agri app, an OSGeo project, which is built on top of this one, right? And some new ones that I've found out over this conference, PG TileServe and PG FeatureServe, both are extensions by Crunchy Data, MapLibre Martin. If you did the workshop on Martin, it's also, again, a very high performant tile server on your PostGIS database, right? So you have the PostGIS extension. You know how to model your data. You got the data in. You got the data out. Now, where to put your PostGIS instance? So that is where these service providers comes in. Obviously, you can have your own database deployed on a bare metal server if that is what your compliance needs. But I've always found it easier, like if you are in the AWS ecosystem, I have the RDS services, just take one click to spin it up. So I thought I might as well mention all those, even if it's a FOSS conference. AWS RDS, a straightforward PostGIS database, supports all the PostGIS stuff. You might face some issues with the extensions. I mean, the other extension that we talk about, not the PostGIS one. AWS Aurora, really good stuff. If you don't know what your usage pattern is going to look like, so it'll save you some cost. Azure also has the Postgres service available to you for deployment. Then there is TimescaleDB, quite a good one actually. One of my favorites. They also have like performance improvements if your data is especially time series. If you have data is going up and down, EDB is another. Percona, EDB, and Crunchy Data, they are more or less same. Crunchy Data has a lot of PostGIS expertise if you are looking forward to those service, right? But you don't need any of those. I mean, you have your bare metal servers, you have a Linux machine, you have Windows machine, I don't know, then you can run your Postgres instance. It's free. Just download it, use it. Doesn't matter. And yeah, if you are a fan of Docker, then you can also install a high availability Postgres cluster, which is I'm talking about a multi-node cluster, which means you don't have one Postgres instance. You have multiple Postgres instance where the data is coming from. It's highly available. It's 99.99999% available. And you don't need to do a lot of work for that because you also have, if you have a Kubernetes cluster, there is a Postgres operator, pretty straightforward. You can deploy it, right? What more can we expect? So even with like the Postgres ecosystem and PostGIS ecosystem and the other geospatial ecosystem we have, there are still some amazing things that people do with Postgres. So Supabase, another great product, and I used it for a small MVP that I was doing. It also supports all the GIS functions, and you can store your real-time data, and it works very similar to what if you have used Firebase, as in like once you update the database, the app updates itself. It's all like real time connected. Amazing stuff. Yugabyte is slightly different. They have like basically pulled apart Postgres, like separating the storage from the compute, and it also gives some performance benefits. Depends on your use case, right? TimescaleDB talked about before. They specialize more in the time series data, right? And Citus is also an extension to make like parallel performance better if you have like a lot of parallel data uh, working in. And this could be really useful if you have like multi-country data and they're not related to each other. Like if you have India's data and you have like Sweden's data and you want to do processing on both, but same processing, you can have like those parallel process spread out across your Postgres cluster, right? So these are some personal tips that came in handy when I was working with the Postgres database, right? Use generated columns for heavy geospatial tasks. What generated columns are is technically you have like a database and you want to do, for example, calculate the area of a polygon, right? And you always need that ready and available on your API. What you can do is have the area calculated and stored each time you do an insert, right? So you don't have to do it on the fly, right? And generated columns will also work with, I mean, you can do a lot of stuff. You can have like buffered zone. Another use case that I had was for simplifying geometry. If you have very high precision geometry inside your PostGIS database, but you don't want to send that to the client because it's too high precision, then you can have simplify on top of it. Materialized views are great for if you have some spatial joins, and those are pretty expensive. Like if they take 2 3 seconds or 10 seconds or 20 seconds 30 seconds to load, then you can do it like based on a cron job or based when the data is insert or some other events, and then you can store them and then they're available off the fly. Indexing, like just really helpful for geospatial queries, like it speeds them up, like queries like st within, st intersects, st distance stuff. Sharding your data based on location, so this is pretty cool stuff. Again, going back to the example that I went before, if you have data based in different countries, you have a global data set spread out across different countries, and you're trying that, how to provide faster access, and all those are sort of independent from each other, then you can shard your data based on location. H3 index would also be really helpful in this place, because it's a discrete grid system, you will be able to shard your data in a very nicely separate like manners, right? Yeah. So next up is again H3 indexes. Uh, Convert your data into something that Postgres understands better, like where you get the performance benefits of being in a Postgres multi-node cluster where you have like a separate read instance, write instances, and you're doing like more BTree indexes joins rather than spatial joins. Compression is also available if you have time series data, really helpful. I worked with NASA farms data, and there was like a 20-year data available for all the farms all over the earth over a period of 20 years, but most of the time the access pattern was only for the last year, and rest of the 19 years the data was just sitting there, so it didn't need to be readily available. And to reduce the cost, it was just compressed and stored in a compressed storage, and it's really useful for that. Continuous aggregates is also another feature of TimescaleDB, but you can also build something very similar by yourself depending on your parameters. But this works very much with the time series data, where you have data coming in. For example, this was an IoT use case. If you have spatial sensors throughout the place and they're constantly sending data, you will have use cases where they are sending the data at one frequency, but 1 second frequency, but you might need the data at like a 10 second, 1 minute frequency, depending on your use case. So continuous aggregate creates those aggregates and store in a materialized view. You can do that, a lot of that stuff, with like having your own parameters in the spatial as well. Depends on use case to use case, right? So this is what Uber H3 indexing looks like when you have a polygon and points. So ideally, what you would do is ST within, like find a polygon and find all the points within that polygon, which is okay if you're working at like I don't know, small country, whatever is the small countries, Vatican, right? But if you represent them as H3 indexes, the points and the polygons, there is like, I've seen like a performance of 30x improvement, right? So another way you can use geospatial stuff inside Postgres, but not exactly like straightforward geospatial, but really helpful with the Postgres stuff, right? Tiles from the PostGIS database. This is also a very common use case that is there. If you have GIS data, you want to visualize it, just visualize it internally, externally, right? And we've talked about this before: MapLibre, Martin, TipG, or just export to PM tiles hosted over S3 and you have it. Or just straightforward use STL-MVT. I mean, geometry is there. You have the XYZ. Just do it. It's like it's like 7-line function, right? Some of the use cases that is readily available, like very easily available off the PostGIS Postgres database. You can create a temporal database using PostGIS, TimescaleDB, and Uber H3. I gave a talk on this in FOSS4GE Florence. It's on the YouTube. You can check it out. REST APIs out of the box using PostGIS REST. Gave a workshop, amazing stuff. And if you have done any of the PyGeo API talks or workshop, you understand how it works with the PyGeo API ecosystem. And TipG is again another great library for building like your APIs from the PostGIS database, right? What about MongoDB? This slide I include just for the fun of it. There is a geospatial support in MongoDB, but nah, I'm just gonna say that, right? That's it for the talk, and thank you everyone for coming. Also a separate plug. I'm on the organizing team for FOSS4GE UK and Asia, so please check those events out. We are looking for people to attend. Yeah, that'll be great too if you guys can make it there.